Hi, and welcome back to Angie Williams in the Mizpah Pottery Studio. Today we are going to learn how to make this wonderful cross bowl. I guess it's a vase or a vase. So we're going to learn how to do that, and it's a little tea light inside. So it's beautiful and gorgeous, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And we're first going to start off with a template. And I will show you how to make this template as well. So this turns into this piece right here. And then we are going to learn how to carve the crosses within this. So this is a piece that we're going to learn how to do as well. And I am excited to show you how to do that. So stick with us today, and we're going to go through all the steps. It doesn't take long at all, and you will be a pro at making cross bowl vases. So see you in a minute. So to make our cross vase today, we are going to be using these tools. So our little spinner wheel, which is fantastic, some of the different sizes of rings to do the bottom, our crosses that we have, they're just wood, our rib tool, of course, my favorite, some brushes, needle tool, and a couple of different sizes of knives. So here we go, settle in and let's begin. Okay, let's get this party started. So these are our templates that we're going to use for the vase, and I have a couple of different sizes. I usually use this one for this vase right here, and it's my favorite one that I always use just because I like to keep the vase small. And I'm using 3 pounds of clay because that allows me to use the template twice, and we just flip it over, and that makes us 2 vases, which is great. You can, give one to your friends or whatever. So actually too, the dimensions are this, about 9.5 centimeters from here to here, and the same from here to here. And so what we're going to do is, once we get this laid out, I'm going to show you how we're going to curve it and attach it, add a bottom to it, and then cut out the crosses. So normally, the thing that we do is we use our rib tool and we get out all of our canvas lines. So let's do that. And you can see that on previous videos as well, but you just want to go lightly, don't want to gouge in, because we don't want to make any more lines. So we're just flipping it back and forth like that, with enough pressure though to get out the canvas lines. And unfortunately, I used some extra clay that we used in our last video. So we do have air bubbles in here, but I do like to use my clay over. I don't like to let it dry out, and we are going to have a few air bubbles in our piece today. So once I get this all smoothed out and we get rid of all of these air bubbles, then what we're going to do is flip it over and do the same thing to the opposite side. So let me get rid of all these air bubbles. And again, sometimes it's good when you have an air bubble to go all the way and poke it to the other side. And sometimes it's better just to do halfway in. So you just have to kind of experiment with your air bubble, see which works best for you, whether you do it at an angle, whether you poke it all the way to the other side. Then when you flip it over again, of course, you're going to have little holes on the other side, which you're going to have to work through as well. But that's just the challenges of using leftover clay, because then you're scrunching it all together and you have different pieces, so there's a lot of air in there. But I just like to use it so that it doesn't dry out. Okay, so I have flipped it over, and now I'm using my rib tool to do the exact same thing on the back side of our clay. And if you can see, when you are going through this, it's kind of like just when you're driving around your car and you hit one of those bumps in a subdivision, that's exactly what this kind of feels like when you have your clay and you're manipulating it over. It lets you know that there's an air pocket, because you have a little bump in your rib right there. And again, just poke your hole in there, and you just want to press down firmly, but you don't want to do it enough that you're stretching out your clay, right? And you want to just kind of whisk it around. So it might take you a couple of times to get the hang of the rib and the whisking of it, but this side doesn't seem to be as bad as the front side of it. So I'll just work through this real quickly again, and we'll get back with you as soon as we're done with this so we can get started. Okay, so I have my template. template, and I'm putting it as close to the edge as I want to because we're going to flip this over to make another piece, right? And in here we have our circular, but we are going to, at some point, we need to make the bottom of our base. So we need to save a place in the clay to do that as well. So it's just a good idea to flip it over, and then we have a space for that too. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our knife, and we are just going to kind of start cutting around this. And again, just find a really good spot on your clay, like right here there's a little cut, so I don't want to put my template over there. So, and you want to keep your knife straight up and down at this particular moment in time, and just you want to go kind of slowly on this template, because sometimes your knife can slip if we're going too fast. So we're just going to do that, and just make sure the tip of the knife is on your board, and then everything will be okay. When we get to refining the vase or vase, potato, patata, tomato, tomato, we will then make the edges smoother and more rounded, so we don't have to worry about that right now too, because we're going to be manipulating this and shaping it, so we're going to have a lot of fingerprints and things like that in it as we go along, but we will clean those up as well. Okay, so there's this piece. So now we're going to flip it over, but I have so much room as well. Sometimes I just want to line up those lines that I have right now so that I can just use that and save myself some clay on this side, because we can use that a little bit later too. So let's go ahead and just do that. Okay, so we are going to make our 45-degree angles, and what you need to do is take your knife, and we are going to keep the tip of it on the board when we're doing our 45-degree angle. And we are also going to cut this in half with our 45-degree angle. So you want to kind of I spy it and kind of get down in there with your eyes and just make sure you're doing halfway. And this is not going to be perfect, but right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be going inside my clay with my needle, my knife nose down, and I'm going to be doing a halfway cut. So again, needle is on the board, and I'm going slowly, keeping the head of the knife on the board and going halfway. 45-degree angle, and you can peel it off. So it's not going to be perfect, but that's what it looks like over there. So now what I want to do is I need to do the other side. So for me, it's easier just to flip it around this way. And now I need to do the opposite, because we are going to merge these pieces together. So when we do this, this is how we need to do it, and fold it like that. So this needs to be merged and married together, but we can't have butt ends. We need to have slanted ends. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do this one over here. And again, the top of the blade on the board, and look and see, and you're going to go halfway and to the clay, and just kind of go slow. Just make sure you're doing pretty much halfway. It's not going to be perfect, which is fine. It just kind of needs to have a 45-degree angle so that we can marry it up with the other piece. All right, so there you go. Now the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to score it. All right, so we have our scoring tool, or you can use a knife that we've done before. So you can just score it easy peasy like that. Or you can score it with your knife like this, like we've done before. Either way works fine. And now we're also going to, this is still a little moist, so it's not bad, but I am going to just use a little dab of water. And again, when you are putting water on your scored piece, you don't want to slide it, you just want to dab it. If you're sliding it, you're taking off the lines, so that's not going to be too helpful. So just dab it. Okay, and so now we're going to marry up our pieces like this. And Make sure the top is there, covering up a little bit. And you are also just wanting to press down just a little bit to kind of seal it, glue it into place, that type of stuff. And there we go. All right, and then we are able to take our wooden tool and merge these two together a little bit more. And again, you want to support your piece. So you support your piece by sticking your fingers inside of it, and you are bringing over the top of that to the bottom piece of the clay. And again, just supporting it from the inside as much as you can. And sometimes I like to go at an angle. That seems to be a little bit better to marrying them. And also in the very top, you want to marry the two and go across the top clay over the bottom clay, just like that. Also, another little tip is to keep your palette kind of not soggy, but just wipe it off, because it keeps the friction going where you need to have it going. And then when you have that done, you can take a little bit more water, just a little bit, moisten, and just kind of rub your fingers over it to smooth it out just a little bit more. It's all about hiding those blemishes. So there we have it right there. So now before we do anything further, we are going to, I'm going to put this on my wheel. And now we're going to do the inside, supporting it back here and moving it around like that. You can see, so easy to do, but just really make sure that you support it well back here behind you. And if you need a little bit more water, just add a little bit more water to it, just to get a little slide effect. You don't want the clay to be dragging, That's not good. Okay, so that kind of helps there. And again, just smooth over the top. And when you have that all done, make sure you get the bottom really good too, so that doesn't come apart. So that's kind of what it looks like inside now. Okay, now what we're going to do is you can just take your fingers and just kind of help it along, smooth it out a little bit more. Get rid of some of those lines that you just created with the wooden tool. And it looks like that. Look at that. Looks like one piece. Woohoo! We did it. Okay, same thing now with this. Just go back here and kind of supporting the inside with your fingers, just to keep your thumb over here, smoothing it out just a little bit more, as well as down here on this seam. And just making it all pretty. Pretty. There. And when you're going to have glaze over this as well, so it will hide a little bit of those seam looks. But that's how you do the inside seam. All right, look at that, voila. When we're glazing it, it will look like this. No lines inside. Okay, this is where it was. But you can see there's no seam outside or inside. You can barely see it just because there's just a little right there, but can't even tell. Looks like it's one whole piece. And that's how I like it. Okay, and so right here too, where the lip crossed over, we just want to smooth that over. Okay, now because this is still really flexible and everything, it's not leather hard yet, so we don't want to let it rest too long on the bottom part here, but it's sturdy enough because I used a little bit of really not wet clay, so it's still pretty good. So what I want us to do now is I want us to flip it over gently, and we're going to work on our bottom pieces. So you can kind of get a piece of paper, trace the outside of it, put it on your clay and cut it that way. I went ahead, just because I do this a lot, and bought these, which I've shown you in the past. So what you want to do is just find a ring that fits, and it might want to fit over it. So this looks like it might fit, but it doesn't really. It sets kind of just a little bit inside of the ring. So I want to get a little bit bigger one. So this is a little bit bigger one, and I may not want that one because it seems like it's a little too big, but we'll see. Just bring this back out again to make sure that it's not folded in. And that piece seems to work well because we can always cut around it. And that piece, you could also poke it in a little bit more if you wanted to, but I don't want to do that. I normally do use this piece, but today we're going to use this piece because has a wider bottom on it. Okay, so we're going to get our piece that we had that was in the middle of that clay a little while ago. And it is a nice thick piece. So again, this is about a quarter size on the slab roller that we slabbed out earlier this morning. And now it's pretty nice, but if we wanted to, we could just use our rib tool a little bit more and make it a little prettier, but it's pretty already. Okay, and then we want our handy dandy cornstarch again because we don't want this to stick on our clay. So I'm just gonna poke it in there a little bit, dust it off, and you're going to cut. Now I'm not going to do right in the middle because you're wasting your clay that way, so I want to put it on the edge as much as possible, and we can save the rest of all this other stuff for a little later. So we got that, and put this back in our bag. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to bring this back over here. Okay, so now what we need to do is score it. So I have this really handy dandy tool right here. You can see it's got little teeth marks. So instead of using your knife, you can use this. There's really quick and easy. And then you want to do this part as well. So I'm just going to kind of place it on there. And see, that's almost perfect. Actually, it is perfect. So if you can kind of see that right there, it lines up pretty well all the way around. And so I want to score this as well. And so I'm not going to score the whole width. I'm just going to do like a little 1/4 inch all the way around because this is going to go inside and I don't want to have a lot of marks to have to get out later. So just a few dots of water, not too much, and then put it on your piece. Look around, round and around and around, see where it goes. Yep. Okay, so I want to kind of poke out one side a little bit more than the other, just so this looks pretty even all the way around, which it does. I'll probably poke this side out a little bit more, make it a little bit more. If you get a crack, you can just brush it over. Okay, let's look at that now. It's still pretty decent. We're gonna form this later as well. So pressing this out stretches your clay to make it a little larger in certain places that you want. And that is totally fine because part of making pottery is you get to manipulate it. Okay. So I'm going to do this right here, bring this out just a little bit. So again, I got my finger down in here and I'm stretching out that clay just a little bit because I want this to be able to sit on there a little bit nicer without me having to cut it. So again, just kind of stretching that lip out a little bit. Put this back on here. And I'm making sure that I put the lip, this down exactly where I'm at, so it will match up. I'm not making any marks in it, but Just getting it to match up a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty good. So now what we're gonna do is we just kind of, you know, jimmy it back and forth till it stops moving. Like that. That's really good. And the other thing you want to do with the bottoms of your pots is to push them down a little bit in the center, because when you are in the kiln, that heats up and it expands and shrinks and things like that. So you want to be able to give your bottom room to breathe, so that your bottom doesn't pop off and make it really super tight. So the other thing that we can do too is to adhere to this a little bit better is you can use your any of your tools that you have, and you can bring this down if you want to, or the other thing that you can do is you can cut around it so that it is a little bit more closer to your base. So you can kind of trim it like that a little bit to have like any of the hangover left, because you know it's not exactly perfect. This way it will look perfect. I can't say that I'm a perfectionist, but when it comes to pottery, I kind of am. Okay, so now we have that in place, and so then what I would do is I would just take this tool and bring it down so that you are doing the bottom of the vase to the pot. I don't want to do it the other way. It just makes sense to bring the bottom of the pot to the top, you know, towards the vase. If you had a spot that was more inside and your vase was more on the outside, then that would make sense to bring it up that way. So just kind of doing that like that, all the way around, and there we go. Now the only other thing I want to do is I just want to add a little water to my finger just to go back and forth and get out those lines that I just made. And again, what that's going to do is it's going to allow it to look like it's one piece. You know, hand building pottery is it's just more fun, I think, is you get to spend more time with your clay. When you are throwing on the wheel, you know, you have to throw about 1,000 pots for you to be able to make a piece that looks anything like anything at all. And I just don't have the time to throw 1,000 pots to get something that looks anything decent. So hats off to all those potters that use the wheel, but I like to spend a little bit more time with my stuff. Plus I like to enjoy embellishing it with texture and stuff like that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. As you can see, looks pretty good, looks all attached. So now we have to do the inside as well. And the inside, I don't use a coil on the inside because it takes a little bit more work and there's just no need for it. So what I do is I just take this tool and I'm just gonna come down about 1/8 of an inch from the inside of the pot and bring it down to the bottom. So that is how we do it. I'll bring it up a little bit higher, maybe you can see it that way. So you just take it like that and you just bring it down. So it covers up that seam right there. So just a little 1/8 of an inch, bringing it down. And you don't want to cut into it, you know, you're just kind of stretching this top of this over the seam like that. Super duper easy. Now what we're gonna do is we got all that done. So I'm taking my fantastic brushes that I love, of course, getting it wet but not, you know, so super wet. Wipe it off, and then you just come back in here and you get out all of those lines like that. It's like magic. You didn't even notice that it was there. So you do that. And I don't use like a really big kind of a brush or anything like that. But I do love my angle brushes, as I've mentioned before. They are my friend. So I have a whole repertoire of brushes. It's fun just to go brush shopping at Hobby Lobby. or AC Moore. I guess AC Moore closed, didn't it? Yeah, that used to be another one of my favorite places to go. It's a shame that they closed. Okay, so now we have that all done. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna let this rest for a little bit. We're gonna flip it upside down and we're gonna let it get leather hard. And then we're gonna do the top of it and get that all nice and yummy. And then we're going to cut through our piece, but we need to have it leather hard before we cut into it with our crosses. And our crosses, again, I think I found this at Hobby Lobby, maybe AC Moore, I don't know. And I loved it because I use this for multiple of ways for my crosses. So we're just gonna do the inside of this cross and not the combination. At some other point, we will do the combination, but today it's just gonna be that. Alrighty, so let's take a break and we'll be back when this is a little bit more leather hard. Welcome back. All right, so we are gonna get started on our rim. So what we're gonna do now is, this is still pretty flexible. I guess it's been about an hour, but I did have it covered up with some plastic because I had errands to run and I didn't want it to get too leather hard, and I wasn't sure how long I was going to be gone. So it is pretty pliable still, but we will go ahead and continue with this lesson. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to compress the lips or the rim. I just try to make it more fun and call everything lips, but anyway, so you can see that this is nice and curved, right? No sharp edges. So this is exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna press it and we're gonna take it and we're gonna run our fingers like this on our new piece, because that rounds it out, it compresses it, so it makes it really sturdy, especially when you're doing a mug and that type of stuff. To compress the clay at the top keeps it really, really sturdy so it doesn't break off or anything like that, and keeps all the sharp edges off as well. So let's get started on that. So you're gonna have to have your water, a little bit of water, and you're going to want to keep your fingers kind of moist but not soaky wet. So keep a paper towel handy and that type of stuff as well. I'm gonna move that a little closer to myself. So the spinning wheel is great for this. If you don't have one, I really suggest you get a spinning wheel. You know, they come in different sizes and that type of stuff, but I tell you what, this is like one of the favorite things that I have besides my brushes and things, but it really helps out from having to pick it all up and move it all the time. So it just kind of saves on that. So your lip right now, or your ridge, is going to have some glumps and everything like that, but what we're going to do, again, we're just going to take your fingers, whichever you feel more comfortable with, could just be both of these, and we are going to just squeeze it a little bit like that, and going back and forth and rubbing over the top of it as well to curve out that edge. Just kind of keep your eye on it, and again, you don't want to make it soggy wet, but just rub over it, squeeze it a little bit, and make it kind of consistent as you're kind of going. So keep your eye on it to make sure that your width is about the same on all sides. And as soon as we get this done, we're going to fine tune this as well. Always fine tuning as we go along. So, and there's a little hump right here from the seam, if you can see that, because that's where our seam was. So it kind of goes like this as a hump, and we're going to cut that off in a little bit. So don't worry when you have that hump where you're at right now in your clay process. The other thing too, is just a little tip, is no fingernails, because when you're working with clay, you know, when you have longer nails, those get lines in the pottery, you know, you're poking and everything like that. So it's just best to keep your nails short. Don't wear jewelry or anything else like that. Keeps the clay, and when you're picking stuff up, then you get ring marks and everything. So it's just go to basics. Go to basics. Okay, so now we got that done. Now what we want to do is I want to bellow it out just a little bit, you know, so I don't want it to just go straight. I want to make it a little curvy. So we are going to just kind of push it up from here and push it out. You know, we're gonna push it out this way to give it that little rounded style. So, and you can do this all the way down in your clay or just up a little bit. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a little bit more water and you are going to support it on one side, and then you're just kind of, you can either go like that and press it out a little bit, you know, to kind of give it a curve. You can go up like that and kind of start in the same spot down below and work yourself up like that. And again, it just kind of makes it, you know, a little bit more circular, so it's not as straight up. So you can kind of see the difference right here. It has a little bit more of a curvature here than it does over here. And so you're really stretching your clay, but you want to do it in small little increments, especially over by the seam that we worked on. So again, just kind of press out with your thumb or your fingers and just kind of be consistent in the same area. As you can see, my area right here is about where I'm doing it at. And you can feel it with your hand too, over here, that you're pressing it out a little bit. You don't want to do a whole lot because then it thins it too, of course. So I don't want to do a whole lot, but just kind of keep it consistent. Just eyeball it. Just eyeball it. Okay, so now for me, the other thing that I might want to do is I might want to bring this ridge in a little bit more and make it this way. So when you want to do that, you just, you know, just do a little bit up here and bring it in just a little bit to give it more of a curve up here, so it's curving more in than out. Okay. All right, so we got that. Looks pretty good. So again, your little tea light is gonna go right down there, and it's a perfect size for a tea light. It fits just perfectly like that. See that? Wonderful. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so then we are going to go ahead and cut in our crosses. So in order to do that, you want a little bit of cornstarch, because again, we don't want the wood sticking to our clay. So I am just going to grab a little cornstarch in the lid right there. And I decide that this is the more of the bottom and this is more of the top. So I'm just going to poke it in the cornstarch a little bit so that it's pretty well covered. And again, we're gonna find our seam. So again, this is kind of good because it's got the little pokiness out. We haven't cut that off yet. You can kind of see your seam. But you can also go around here on the back, or you can go in the side and you can kind of see your seam in there. So we do not want to put our cross on the seam, because when we're cutting through, it will just split. So we want to make sure that we've moved over from the seam and we have it somewhere else. And so what I like to do is I like to come down about 1/4 inch. As you can see right here from the top of the cross, come down 1/4 inch. So you can either make them just like this and just have several, or you can, you know, make more additional and cut those out too. So right now what we're gonna do, I'm just making the glazed part now, and then we will work on the cutouts later. So I have it 1/4 inch down, and I'm holding it back here for support, and I'm just pressing in just to get an indentation. And again, if you are working on just the glazed part of the cross, you want to make your indentation deep enough so that it holds the glaze, but not deep enough that it goes through the other side. So you just kind of got to be aware of that. So right now we are making the indentation for the glaze part. And then once I do that, I eyeball it, and I want to come straight across to do the other side. So I put my cross right over there, and again about 1/4 inch down, and I'm supporting it from the back and kind of pushing it in. Again, these are my glazed parts. So I got that, and just gotta grab hold and pull it out. And again, I didn't put the cornstarch on there, so we got to do it here so it doesn't stick so much. Okay, so now your next piece is going to go directly across from those two, just because, you know, I want to just make everything like sequential or even. Okay, and then you just poke it out again. So we're going to have 4 of those. 4 that we are going to glaze. Okay, and then pull it back out. Da-da-da. And put it back in. And now this one's going to go directly across from that one, like so. Okay, now that we have that one done, we are going to go ahead and we're going to do the ones below where we're going to cut out. So again, we've got to do the same process. So this is going to go in between those, and it's going to go down a little bit. So just make sure that it's even on both sides, on the top, and as even as you think you can make it. And again, you're just pressing it in. There we go. And now you just, you know, just go around and just kind of make sure that you kind of have it in the same spot, even Steven across there. You can measure it, I suppose, but you know, I don't get all fancy like that. I am not fancy. Looks good. So now that we have that all done, I want you to take your knife, and so for me, I'm using the skinnier knife. So again, this one's a little bit more skinny. This is perfect for cutting out crosses and things like that because it doesn't have that wide blade, and we have very small places to go. So I'm just gonna do one of these to show you, and then we'll shut off the video and continue in a little bit. So what you're gonna do is you are just going to take your knife and just cut alongside of that. And you might wanna go kind of slow and just go straight down for a straight line to the bottom of that. And then the same thing over here. And again, I'm supporting it on the back side. Always want to support your piece. And then you got to kind of saw it on the other side. When you're doing like the top of the cross, it's just easier to kind of saw it. It doesn't, you know, the gravity and everything doesn't work quite as much as going straight down. And then of course the little sides and the top. And that just usually takes one cut of the knife. And on the bottom, just try to get it as straight as you can on that. Okay, so then you want to poke it out. So this is a good poker over here. Just turn it around and poke out your cross. And sometimes if you do it really well, this cross will come out exactly as is, and you can use it for something else. So we have all this done now, and there is your cross. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of these out, and I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, so I have started my second one that we had cut out earlier. And then what I want to show you now is using the excess clay that we had cut away from our original slab rolled piece to do the bottom of this one. So, you know, the other one that we used had the circular thing that we were all able to make already, so that was easy peasy, but this one doesn't, but we do have excess clay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut this off a little bit here, and I'm going to add a piece of clay. So I'm going to do it kind of like that, and what we're going to do is we're just going to marry these up. So a little scoring would be fine because it's been sitting in plastic for a little while now since we started our first piece. And just kind of dab it again. So the reason that we're doing this is because we just need a bottom, right, for our next piece. And this comes together so easily you won't even notice it. So we just kind of marry it up like that. And then you're going to take your tool that we have, and you're just going to go like this. Just push them together. Push them together like that. And then I just kind of go back and forth and marry them up. And then I gently flip it over. because I don't want to tear it apart. And you do the same thing over here. Just kind of marry it up, smooth it out. Pressing down kind of hard, you know, you want to give it some muscle to put those together. And do that, and just make sure it's nice and smooth. The other thing too that we didn't do on the other piece on the bottom, which sometimes I think is really kind of cute, is to put something on the bottom of your piece, like right here, like an indentation of a bird or something like that. But because most of them have tea lights, I don't do that. But it's really great if you want to do that with a coffee mug or something like that, and you can just get a stamp of a bird and just poke it in there. Or if you want to, you know, you can draw a heart. So again, we are going to get our circular piece out here, and we have flipped this over again. So see, it's pretty married, right? You can't even tell. Looks like it's just been one piece. Again, we're gonna move our lip up a little bit right here so it's not sagging in. We don't like saggy lips, do we? Okay, and then that is the one that we want to use. So again, and you don't have to do right in the middle, because we want to do as much of the clay that we had without using too much of the seam. So I'm going to just put it up here a little further, so there's just going to be just barely part of the seam that we used before. And voila, look at that. Looks like one piece. And then you just continue it as it was, like we had in our last one that we did. And that's how it is. And dab it on, and you're ready for your second piece. Okay, well, we have gotten all the crosses cut out, and that took maybe 3 minutes to do, which is no big deal. So now that we have that all taken care of, you again hold it like this and check out the other side. So the other side, of course, is going to have a little bit more gunk on it. And so what you want to do is you can just take your knife again and just be really gentle, and you might want to wait till this is more leather hard to be able to do this, but you could just kind of fine tune it and cut away, make your edges square, or however you want to do that with your across on your bottoms and your sides. So it's just really easy to go through here, and like I said, you might want to wait till it's just a little bit more leather hard to do that, and just kind of scrape away with it too. And then when you get all done with that, you definitely can take your brush and make this really smooth on this side. But this, you know, you just go in and clean this out, because again, once this comes out of the kiln, oh my gosh, this is too hard to clean up because there's too many ragged edges. So this is something you definitely want to do right now, is clean this up so much, because it's a little bit hard to get all these edges off with sandpaper, which we are going to learn how to do. And so this is one of the pieces where it's just kind of cumbersome to work with sandpaper to try to get into these small little areas and cut it away. So again, just do a little bit of cleanup like that. And now after you've done all of that, you can come back, make sure your bowl is circular as much as can. And on this little hump that we have over here where that seam was at, we want to just be able to cut it away a little bit. Like that. And if you need to, you can thin it out on the side over here as well, but it doesn't need to do that too much. And then just round it off again. And there you have it. The last thing you want to do with all of your pieces is to sign it, right? So again, just flip it over really nicely and sign your piece. So mine is Mizpah. How many know what Mizpah is? Mizpah, I have a whole story on Mizpah. Mizpah means, may God watch over you while we are apart. And if you stay tuned for another session on the YouTube channel of Angie Williams Mizpah Pottery, I will tell you the story about how my business became Mizpah Pottery. So there you go. You can just do your little cleanup, and then when you're all done with it, the best thing to do too, I usually air dry all of my pieces without covering them up, but some pieces you need to cover up so they dry a little bit more slowly. So you can cover this up with another grocery bag, plastic grocery bag, and it's best to let it dry this way and don't flip it over. And so as soon as this is maybe a day of drying, then flip it over again and dry some more, and then flip it over again and dry it from the base up, because right now it's still a little wet. So if we dry it with the bottom down, you know, like we normally would, then this has a tendency to sink into the vase itself, which we don't want to do, of course. So always when you have a mug or something like that with a bottom on it, dry it with the bottom up first, and then afterwards, you know, flip it over so the inside starts getting dry as well. Just kind of give attention to both sides. So that is all for today's lesson. I hope that you will subscribe and like and comment on us and share us with all your friends and your family. Thanks so much, and we will see you again next time.